The little girl's voice was barely a whisper, fragile as winter ice cracking underfoot. "She looks like Mommy." Vincent Moretti froze in the doorway of the elementary school classroom, his hand still gripping the frame hard enough that the wood groaned beneath his fingers. He'd walked into war zones with steadier breath than this. Welcome to Crimson Stories, where love isn't gentle. It's the collision of broken people brave enough to piece each other back together. If you believe that even the most dangerous men can find redemption in the most unexpected places, hit that subscribe button and smash the like to support stories that remind us we're all worth saving. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from tonight. We read every single one. Now, let's see how one terrified little girl and a stranger with kind eyes changed everything for Chicago's most feared consigliere. The call had come 23 minutes ago. Vincent had been in the middle of reviewing laundering, operations through Southside construction contracts, when his phone lit up with the school's number. He'd answered on the first ring. He always did when it involved Isabella. "Mr. Moretti, I'm so sorry to disturb you." The principal's voice had carried that particular strain of panic that people got when they realized they were dealing with someone connected. "Isabella's having another episode. She's asking for Miss Carla. We can't calm her down." Vincent had been in his car within minutes, his driver knowing better than to speak during the 15-minute drive to Bronzeville. The neighborhood sat firmly in Rossi territory. Every business paid protection. Every school received donations. Every police officer knew exactly which calls to ignore. Vincent had ensured it personally after his brother and sister-in-law died here 8 months ago. Their car riddled with bullets meant for him. Isabella had been in the back seat. 6 years old, covered in her parents' blood, silent as stone. She'd barely spoken since. The school's fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Vincent strode through hallways decorated with construction paper turkeys and handprint art. November in Chicago meant the heating system rattled and hissed, fighting against cold that seeped through every crack in the old building's foundation. His Armani suit was absurdly out of place among the scuffed linoleum and peeling paint. He'd expected to find his niece in the principal's office, curled into herself the way she did during the panic attacks. Small body shaking, eyes unseeing, trapped somewhere between present and past. Expected to have to carry her out while she screamed silently. He hadn't expected this. The classroom was empty except for 2 figures on the floor near the reading corner. Isabella sat in a woman's lap, her small frame tucked against an unfamiliar body, her face buried in the crook of a stranger's neck. The woman was young, late 20s maybe, with long dark hair falling in waves past her shoulders. She wore a simple gray cardigan over a faded floral dress, clothes that had seen too many washes and showed threads pulling loose at the seams. Her canvas sneakers lay beside her, holes visible near the toes. She was singing. The melody was soft, Portuguese syllables Vincent didn't understand, but felt somehow in his chest. Her voice carried the worn quality of someone who sang often, but not for audiences. A lullaby voice, intimate and unpolished. One hand cradled the back of Isabella's head, while the other traced slow circles on the child's back, a rhythm as steady as breathing. Isabella's shaking had stopped. Vincent must have made a sound, a sharp intake of breath maybe, because the woman's head turned. Her eyes met his, and the singing faltered for just a moment. Brown eyes, warm and cautious, with dark circles underneath that spoke of sleepless nights and worries carried too long. Her face was pretty in an exhausted way, delicate features showing the kind of thinness that came from missed meals rather than gyms. She looked exactly like Maria. The realization hit Vincent like a fist to the sternum. Not identical. This woman's nose was different, her jaw softer, but the coloring was the same. The gentle quality in her expression. The way dark hair framed her face. The kindness in her eyes that Vincent's sister-in-law had possessed right up until the moment bullets tore through her body. Ela, parece como mamãe, Isabella whispered again, her small voice muffled against the woman's shoulder. She looks like Mommy. The woman, Miss Carla, the principal had said, glanced down at Isabella, then back at Vincent. Her expression shifted, going carefully neutral in the way people did when they sensed danger but couldn't identify the source. Her arms tightened protectively around Bella. Mr. Moretti. Her voice carried a slight accent, Brazilian maybe, softening the hard consonants. I'm Carolina Mendez, Isabella's teacher. Vincent's throat felt tight. He forced himself to step into the room, to move with the controlled grace that he'd perfected over years of walking into rooms where everyone watched for signs of weakness. How long has she been like this? About 40 minutes. Carolina shifted slightly, making sure Isabella remained stable in her lap. She had a panic attack during reading time, started hyperventilating. The principal called you right away, but Isabella kept saying she needed someone who knew the song her mother used to sing. I don't know that song, but I know other songs. You speak Portuguese? I'm from São Paulo originally. Carolina's hand never stopped its soothing motion on Isabella's back. I've been singing my son to sleep with these lullabies since he was born. I thought, maybe the sound would help even if the words were different. Vincent's jaw tightened. He'd tried everything with Bella over the past 8 months. Child psychologists, trauma specialists, medication that made her sleep, but didn't stop the nightmares. Nothing worked. She barely ate, barely spoke. The school had called twice a week since September because she couldn't function in a normal classroom. And this stranger on a floor had accomplished in 40 minutes what Vincent couldn't manage in 8 months. She's calm now. Carolina's voice was gentle. Do you want to take her? Vincent knelt, his knee protesting. Old injury from a bullet that grazed him years ago. But he ignored it. He positioned himself at eye level with his niece, careful not to loom. Bella, Uncle Vincent's here. Isabella's head turned slowly. Her eyes, the same gray-green as her father's, were red-rimmed but clearer than they'd been in months. She looked at Vincent, then at Carolina, then back again. She sang to me, Bella whispered. Like Mommy did. Vincent's chest constricted. I know, Piccola. That was kind of her. Can she come home with us? Carolina's eyes widened slightly. Vincent saw her instinctive response, the slight lean backward, the way her shoulders tensed. She was already preparing to refuse gently. Bella, Miss Carla has her own home, Vincent said carefully. Her own family. But she's nice. Isabella's voice cracked. She smells like Mommy's perfume, and she's warm. Carolina's expression did something complicated. She looked at Vincent, and for a moment he saw her truly. A woman who'd stayed late after school to comfort a traumatized child she barely knew, whose clothes were threadbare but clean, whose hands were chapped from work, whose eyes held shadows that matched his own. Tell you what, querida, Carolina said softly to Isabella. How about I make sure I see you tomorrow at school? We can read together during lunch. Would you like that? Isabella nodded, a tiny movement but definite. Good. Carolina met Vincent's gaze. I think your uncle can take you home now. You're safe with him. The word safe felt like an accusation. Vincent gathered Isabella into his arms, feeling how light she was, how fragile. She pressed her face against his neck, and Vincent's heart splintered. Carolina stood gracefully, brushing dust from her dress. Up close, the differences from Maria became more apparent. Fuller lips, slightly rounder face, the wariness in her posture that Maria had never possessed. Thank you, Vincent said. The words felt inadequate. It's my job. But her tone suggested otherwise. This was about seeing a child in pain and responding with instinct. Vincent wanted to ask questions, wanted to know why a teacher in a protected school wore clothes with holes, wanted to understand the edge of fear he'd seen in her eyes. Instead, he nodded once and turned toward the door. "Mr. Moretti?" He paused, looked back. Carolina was biting her lower lip. "If Isabella needs anything else, if there's anything I can do to help her adjust, I'm here. I know. She's been through something terrible." Vincent's expression hardened. "We all have." Something flickered in Carolina's eyes. Recognition, as if she heard the echo of her own truth in his words. "Yes," she said quietly. "We have." The first time Isabella refused to go to school was 3 days later. Vincent stood in the marble-floored foyer of his Oak Brook mansion, Isabella's tiny hand gripping his with surprising strength. She wore the navy uniform dress, white tights, black Mary Janes polished to a shine. Her backpack sat ready by the door. But her feet were planted, and her eyes, those gray-green, eyes that looked too old for a 6-year-old, were fixed on his face with quiet determination. "I won't go if Miss Carla isn't there." Vincent's jaw tightened. "Bella, Miss Carla is your teacher. She'll be there. Promise?" He didn't make promises he couldn't keep. That was rule number 1 in his world. But looking down at his niece, at the first real emotion she'd shown since the shooting, Vincent found himself nodding. "I promise." The school confirmed Carolina would be there. She was always there, apparently. Never missed a day. Vincent should have been relieved. Instead, he found himself wondering why a woman who could barely afford decent shoes never called in sick, wondering what kind of desperation kept someone that reliable. By the end of November, a pattern had emerged. Isabella would go to school, but only if Vincent personally confirmed Carolina's presence. She'd attend classes, but she'd spend every lunch period in Carolina's classroom. She'd participate in activities, but only if Carolina was nearby. And every afternoon when Vincent arrived for pickup, he'd find his niece in the same spot, sitting on the floor beside Carolina's desk, reading or drawing, while Carolina graded papers. "She feels safe with you," Vincent said one afternoon, standing in the doorway of the empty classroom. Carolina looked up from a stack of spelling tests. Her hair was pulled back today, revealing the elegant line of her neck, the exhaustion in her posture. "She's been through trauma. Sometimes children attach to whoever makes them feel secure in the moment." "You're more than a moment." Vincent stepped inside, closed the door behind him. The click echoed in the quiet room. "She talks about you at home. First time she's talked about anything." Something shifted in Carolina's expression. Pleasure, maybe, quickly hidden. "Isabella's a remarkable child. Resilient. She thinks you're magic. I'm not." Carolina set down her red pen. "I'm just present. That's all children really need. Someone who shows up." Vincent moved closer, noting the details he'd cataloged over the past 3 weeks. The same 3 outfits rotated through the week. The lunch she packed that was always small. Crackers, an apple, nothing substantial. The way she tensed whenever anyone approached too quickly. The absence of a wedding ring, but the presence of a thin tan line where one used to be. "You have a son," he said. Not a question. "Theo. He's 4. Carolina's voice warmed slightly. "He's in the preschool program here." "And his father?" The warmth vanished. Carolina's shoulders went rigid, her hands flattening against the desk. "Not in the picture." Vincent recognized evasion. He'd perfected it himself. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." Carolina stood, gathering papers into her worn canvas bag. "We're better off." The bitterness in those 4 words told Vincent everything and nothing. He wanted to push, to ask the questions forming in his mind. but he'd learned patience in his line of work. Information came to those who waited. Isabella needs consistency, Carolina said, changing the subject with obvious relief. The therapist you mentioned, is she helping? Not as much as you are. Vincent leaned against a desk, crossing his arms. The wood creaked under his weight. Bella sleeps better on days she sees you. Eats more. Talks more. That's good. It's dependency. Vincent's voice roughened. What happens when school breaks for holidays? When summer comes? Carolina met his gaze directly. Then you'll have done your job as her guardian. You'll have given her enough security that she can handle temporary separation. I don't know how to do that. The admission cost him. Vincent Moretti didn't admit weakness, didn't acknowledge limitations. But standing in this classroom with its alphabet border and crayon drawings, he felt completely out of his depth. Carolina's expression softened. You're showing up. That's the first step. It's not enough. It's more than you think. She picked up her bag, slinging it over one shoulder. The weight made her wince slightly. Isabella talks about you too, you know. About how you check on her at night. How you let her sleep in your room when she has nightmares. How you're learning to braid her hair. Vincent's jaw tightened. The braiding had been a disaster. He'd watched 3 YouTube tutorials and still managed to make it look like a bird's nest. But Bella had smiled when she looked in the mirror, and that had been worth the frustration. She said you're trying to be like her daddy, Carolina continued quietly. That means everything to a grieving child. The words landed hard. Vincent looked away, studying the bulletin board covered in student artwork. One drawing caught his eye. Isabella's, unmistakable in the careful way she drew each line. A house, 3 figures. The tallest labeled Uncle Vincent in careful letters. The smallest Bella. And between them, a figure with long dark hair labeled Miss Carla. Carolina noticed his gaze. She drew that yesterday, during free time. She drew you into our family. Children process through play and art. It means she needs you. Vincent turned back to face her. More than she should. More than is sustainable. Carolina's hands tightened on her bag strap. Mr. Moretti, I care about Isabella. I care about all my students. But I can't be responsible for... I'm not asking you to be responsible. I'm asking... Vincent stopped, unsure what he was asking. Help? Guidance? For this woman to keep showing up because his niece had latched onto her like a lifeline? The door opened. A small boy burst in, dark curls bouncing, wearing the same worn quality clothes as Carolina. Mama! Mrs. Patterson said I could come find you. Theo. Had to be. He had Carolina's brown eyes, her delicate features. But there was something else in his face, a wariness that didn't belong on a 4-year-old. The boy saw Vincent and stopped dead. His, expression shifted instantly, going blank and careful. He moved to Carolina's side, pressing against her leg, his small hand gripping her skirt. It's okay, meu amor, Carolina murmured, switching seamlessly to Portuguese. Her hand settled on Theo's head, protective and soothing. This is Mr. Moretti, Isabella's uncle. Theo studied Vincent with unblinking intensity. Then, in accented English, You're big. Theo, Carolina warned gently. He is big, Mama. Like... The boy trailed off, and Vincent saw something flicker across his small face. Fear. Quickly hidden, but unmistakable. Like someone else. Someone who'd taught this child that big men were dangerous. Vincent crouched slowly, making himself smaller. He'd done this with Isabella countless times. Your mama's right. I'm Isabella's uncle. She talks about you too. Says you're nice to her at recess. Theo's grip on Carolina loosened slightly. Bella's sad a lot. She is. Mama says sad is okay. Says we gotta feel sad before we can feel happy again. Vincent glanced up at Carolina. Her face had gone carefully neutral, but her hand on Theo's shoulder trembled slightly. Your mama's very smart, Vincent said. I know. Theo's chin lifted. She's the smartest mama in the whole world. The fierce pride in that small voice did something to Vincent's chest, made it hard to breathe for a moment. Isabella appeared in the doorway then, backpack trailing from one hand. She saw Theo and her face brightened, the first genuine smile Vincent had seen in months. Theo, did you see the trucks at recess? And just like that, the children were absorbed in conversation about playground trucks, their voices bright and clear in the fading afternoon light. Carolina watched them with an expression Vincent couldn't quite read. Love, certainly, but underneath something rawer, something that looked like fear barely contained. I should get him home, she said quietly. We have a walk. You don't drive? Not anymore. Carolina called to Theo, switching to Portuguese. The boy protested but came when she held out her hand. Vincent watched them prepare to leave, the practiced efficiency of a mother used to managing alone. Theo's coat had a rip in the sleeve. Carolina's purse was held together with safety pins. Where do you live? The question came out more demanding than Vincent intended. Carolina's spine stiffened. South Side, near the school. The South Side wasn't uniform. Parts were fine. Parts were war zones. What street? Mr. Moretti, I appreciate your concern for Isabella, but my personal life is relevant when my niece has attached herself to you. Vincent stood to his full height, watching Carolina's eyes track the movement. Watching the way she stepped slightly in front of Theo. I need to know she's safe, that you're safe. We're fine. She was lying. Vincent had interrogated enough people to know the signs, the slight elevation in breathing, the way her pupils dilated, the defensive posture. But he also knew when to retreat. Isabella wants to know if you'll be here Monday, he said instead. Carolina's shoulders relaxed fractionally. Yes, I'll be here. Good. Vincent moved toward the door, paused beside them. This close, he could smell her shampoo, something floral and cheap. Could see the threadbare quality of Theo's coat more clearly. Miss Mendez? Yes? If you ever need anything. For yourself or for Theo. The school has my number. Carolina's jaw tightened. We don't need charity, Mr. Moretti. I wasn't offering charity. I was offering help. There's a difference. He left before she could respond, collecting Isabella and walking to where his driver waited. As the car pulled away, Vincent glanced back. Carolina and Theo were walking toward the bus stop, her hand tight around his, both of them leaning into the November wind. And Vincent found himself wondering what kind of man had put that fear in a child's eyes. December came with snow that turned Chicago into something beautiful and brutal. Vincent stood at the window of his office in the Rossi family's legitimate construction company headquarters, watching flakes fall against the gray sky. Below, the city moved with the determined pace of people used to winter. But all Vincent could think about was whether Carolina and Theo had warm enough coats for the walk from school to wherever home was. He'd tried finding her address, discreetly, through the school's records. But the information listed was a P.O. box and an email address, no home address, no emergency contact beyond the school itself. That alone told Vincent she was hiding. You're distracted. Don Rossi's voice cut through Vincent's thoughts. The Don sat behind his massive mahogany desk, fingers steepled, dark eyes assessing. That's not like you. Vincent turned from the window. Enzo Rossi was 72, silver-haired, sharp as the day he'd taken over the family 40 years ago. He'd been Vincent's father's closest friend, had practically raised Vincent after his parents died, trusted him as consigliere because Vincent never let personal matters interfere with business. Until now. Los Reyes is moving product through Bronzeville, Vincent said, redirecting, using the community center on 47th as a front. I'm aware. Don Rossi leaned back in his leather chair. I'm also aware you've been spending unusual amounts of time at that elementary school, the one we protect. Vincent kept his expression neutral. Isabella's struggling. I need to be present. And the teacher? Carolina Mendez? Vincent's jaw tightened. Of course the Don knew. Enzo Rossi knew everything that happened in his territory. She's been helpful with Isabella. She's also been asking questions. Don Rossi pulled a folder from his desk drawer, slid it across. Quietly, carefully, about whether the school does background checks on parents who volunteer, about security protocols, about whether local police have jurisdiction on school property. Vincent picked up the folder, flipped it open. Inside were basic details: Carolina's employment file, payroll records showing she was paid in cash, copies of references that checked out but were vague, and a note at the bottom in the Don's handwriting: no legal name change on record, no passport, no driver's license, no credit history before 18 months ago. She's running, Vincent said quietly. Obviously. Don Rossi tapped his desk. The question is from what? Or whom? Vincent studied the sparse information. Carolina Mendez existed on paper, but barely. Like someone had built an identity from scratch. Amateur work. Good enough to fool a school's hiring process, but not good enough to disappear completely. You want me to dig deeper, Vincent said. I want you to be careful. The Don's voice softened slightly. Isabella has suffered enough. If this woman brings trouble to our territory, she won't. You don't know that. Vincent closed the folder. She's hiding from something. Someone. She's scared, but she's not dangerous. Fear makes people unpredictable. Don Rossi stood, moved to the window Vincent had vacated. However, Isabella's well-being is priority. If this teacher helps her, then we protect the teacher. But I need to know what we're protecting her from. I'll find out, without scaring her off. The Don glanced back. She's already skittish. Push too hard and she'll run. Then Isabella loses the one person who seems to reach her. Vincent nodded. The Don was right. Carolina was a flight risk. Whatever she was running from, it was serious enough that she'd built a new identity. Serious enough that she worked for cash and avoided anything requiring legal documentation. That night, Vincent made a decision. He waited until Isabella was asleep, her small body curled around the stuffed rabbit Carolina had given her last week. Then he drove back to Bronzeville, to the streets near the school. He parked where he could watch the bus stop, engine running, heat on against the cold. He didn't have to wait long. Carolina emerged from the evening darkness around 8, Theo's hand in hers. She walked quickly, head down against the wind. But Vincent noticed everything. The way she checked over her shoulder every few steps. The way she positioned Theo on her far side, away from the street. The way she changed direction twice, taking longer routes. She was being followed. Or thought she was. Vincent followed at a distance, watching as Carolina led Theo through neighborhoods that grew progressively worse. Past boarded-up buildings, past corners where dealers worked despite the cold, past alleys where predators waited. She turned onto a street Vincent knew well, one the Rossi family had written off years ago as too far gone to bother protecting. The buildings here were barely standing, broken windows covered with plastic, heat escaping through cracks that let in winter. Carolina climbed the steps of a 3-story, walk up, unlocked 3 separate locks, and disappeared inside. Vincent sat in his car, engine idling, staring at the building. 4th floor window. He'd counted her shadow moving past. No light visible, which meant she was using what little electricity she had sparingly. His phone buzzed. Text from Marco, one of his soldiers. Los Reyes meeting at the warehouse. Want me to sit on it? Vincent typed back. Yes. Report anything unusual. Los Reyes. Carolina's fear. The pieces were there, Vincent just couldn't see the pattern yet. He drove home through empty streets, thoughts churning. By the time he pulled into his driveway, a plan had formed. The next morning, Vincent waited until Isabella was settled in Carolina's classroom. Then he asked to speak with her privately. Carolina followed him into the empty hallway, arms crossed defensively. Is something wrong with Isabella? No, she's doing well. Vincent kept his voice low. I wanted to ask you something. What? Christmas break is coming. 2 weeks. Isabella will be home every day. Vincent paused. She's going to struggle without her routine, without seeing you. Carolina's expression shuddered. Mr. Moretti, I'm not asking you to work during break. I'm asking if you'd consider coming to dinner, once or twice, so Isabella has something to look forward to. That's not appropriate. Why not? Vincent held her gaze. You're her teacher. Teachers visit students' homes all the time. Not students whose uncles are... Carolina stopped, bit her lip. Whose uncles are what? She looked away. Forget it. But Vincent had heard what she didn't say. She knew, or suspected, that he wasn't just some businessman, that his world had edges she didn't want to examine too closely. I would never do anything to make you uncomfortable, Vincent said quietly. You can bring Theo. We have a game room, pool. Isabella would love having another child around. He watched the war on Carolina's face, the want to say yes, for Isabella's sake. The fear of getting closer to something she didn't understand. I'll think about it, she finally said. That's all I ask. But as Vincent walked away, he realized he'd lied. He was asking for more than dinner. He was asking her to trust him, to step into his world, even at the edges. And he had no right to ask that. Not when he still didn't know what she was running from. 3 days later, Carolina agreed to dinner, just once, the Saturday before Christmas. Vincent spent the entire day preparing. Not cooking, he had staff for that, but making sure everything was perfect. Making sure his home felt safe, not intimidating. He had Marco sweep the property, checking for anything that might trigger Carolina's obvious paranoia. Had the housekeeper set up the game room with age-appropriate toys for both children. When Carolina arrived in a borrowed car, Vincent recognized the vehicle as belonging to another teacher. She looked terrified. Theo pressed against her, sighed, eyes huge as he took in the mansion size. Mama, it's a castle. It's just a house, mi amor, Carolina murmured. But her hand shook as Vincent opened the door. Welcome, he said simply. Isabella appeared behind him, practically bouncing. Theo, come see my room. I got new blocks. The children disappeared in a flurry of excitement, leaving Vincent and Carolina standing in the foyer. Your home is beautiful, Carolina said, her voice strained. It's too big. Vincent gestured toward the living room. Please, sit. Can I get you something to drink? Water is fine. He poured sparkling water into crystal glasses, noting how Carolina's eyes tracked every movement, how she'd positioned herself near the exit, how her breathing was shallow. You're safe here, Vincent said, handing her the glass. I know. But she didn't sound convinced. They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Then Vincent asked the question he'd been holding. "What are you afraid of, Carolina?" Her glass froze, halfway to her lips. "Excuse me?" "You're terrified, all the time. I see it in how you move, how you watch everyone, how you position Theo." Vincent leaned forward. "Someone hurt you. Someone you're still scared of." Carolina set down her glass with shaking hands. "Mr. Moretti, I don't think—" "Vincent, please. Vincent." She said his name like it cost her. "I appreciate your concern, but my past is my business. It becomes my business when it affects Isabella. It doesn't. You're lying." Vincent kept his voice gentle. "And I think you know that whatever you're running from, it's getting closer." Carolina stood abruptly. "I should check on Theo." "Wait." Vincent rose too. "I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to help." "Why?" Carolina spun to face him. "Why do you care? Isabella's your responsibility. I'm just her teacher. Whatever problems I have, they're mine to solve. Because you remind her of her mother." The words came out rawer than Vincent intended. "Because she's attached to you in a way that terrifies me. Because if something happens to you, it destroys her. And I can't—" His voice cracked. "I can't lose her to grief again." Carolina's expression shifted. Something like understanding crossed her face. "You feel guilty about their deaths." Vincent's jaw locked. He didn't talk about this, didn't acknowledge the weight he carried every day. "The bullets were meant for you," Carolina continued softly. "Weren't they?" "How did you—" "I read about it. After I met you. Googled your name." Carolina's hands twisted together. "Found the articles about the shooting. About how your brother and sister-in-law died in Bronzeville. How Isabella survived." Vincent felt exposed in a way he hadn't in years. "Then you know what I am." "I know what the articles say you are." Carolina met his gaze. "I don't know what you actually are." "Does it matter?" "Yes." She said it firmly. "Because if I let Theo near you, near this world, I need to know he'll be safe." Vincent understood then. She wasn't just asking about him. She was asking if his world was more dangerous than whatever she was running from. "I would never let anything happen to Theo," Vincent said. "Or to you. That's not a promise you can make. It's the only promise I have." They stared at each other. And in that moment, Vincent saw past Carolina's fear to the woman underneath, saw strength that matched her gentleness, saw fierce protection that matched his own, saw someone who understood survival. "Mama," Theo's voice called from upstairs. "Come see what Bella showed me." The moment broke. Carolina exhaled slowly. "I should go check on him." "Of course." But as she walked toward the stairs, she paused. "Vincent?" "Yes?" "Thank you for trying to protect her, even though you're carrying guilt that isn't entirely yours to carry." Then she was gone, footsteps soft on the stairs, leaving Vincent standing in his too big living room, wondering how this woman had seen through him so completely in just a few weeks, and wondering how much longer he could protect her from whatever was coming. The accident happened on a Tuesday in January. Vincent was in a meeting with the family's accountant when his phone rang. The school's number. His blood went cold. "Mr. Moretti, this is Principal Hayes. There's been an incident." "Isabella?" No. Isabella's fine. But Theo Mendez fell on the playground. Carolina's with him now. They're taking him to County General. She's quite upset." Vincent was moving before the principal finished speaking. "I'm on my way." He found them in the emergency room an hour later. Carolina sat in a plastic chair, Theo on her lap, her arms wrapped around him protectively. The boy's wrist was swollen, already bruising. Tears tracked down his face, but he wasn't screaming. That unnatural quiet that Vincent recognized from Isabella, the kind that came from learning early that crying didn't help. Carolina's face was white. Her eyes, when she looked up at Vincent, were wild with barely contained panic. "They want X-rays," she said, voice shaking. "They're asking for insurance cards, for his birth certificate, for... She couldn't finish, but Vincent understood instantly. No documents, no legal identity, which meant no medical care without triggering a dozen red flags, social services, questions about custody, immigration status, all the things that would unravel whatever fragile existence Carolina had built. "I'll handle it," Vincent said quietly. "You can't." Carolina's arms tightened around Theo. "There's nothing to handle. We'll go home, ice it, it'll be fine. His wrist could be broken. Then it'll heal broken." Her voice cracked. "I can't. They'll take him. If I fill out those forms, if they start asking questions." "Mama," Theo whimpered. "It hurts." Carolina pressed her face against her son's hair, and Vincent saw her breaking. Saw the moment when survival instinct warred with maternal desperation. "Wait here," Vincent said. He found the intake nurse, a tired woman in her 50s with kind eyes. "The Mendez boy. I need you to process him under a different billing system." "Sir, we need insurance information." Vincent pulled out his wallet, extracted a card. "This is my attorney's number. Call him. Now. Tell him Vincent Moretti needs a medical account opened for a minor patient. He'll handle the paperwork. I'll cover all costs." The nurse's eyes widened slightly. Recognition. She knew the name. Knew what it meant. "Sir, if this is about falsifying records, it's about getting a child medical care." Vincent's voice hardened. "You want him seen by a doctor, or you want him in that waiting room all night while bureaucracy decides his arm is worth the paperwork?" The nurse bit her lip, made a decision. "I'll make the call." 20 minutes later, Theo was being x-rayed. Vincent waited with Carolina in the hallway. She sat slumped against the wall, knees drawn up, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. "I can't pay you back," she said, without looking at him. "I'm not asking you to. This is what I was afraid of." Carolina's voice was hollow. "Getting close. Letting people help. Because now you know. Now you'll ask questions." "I don't need to ask." Vincent sat beside her on the cold floor, ignoring how undignified it was. "You're using a fake identity. You don't have legal documents for yourself or Theo. You're hiding from someone. Probably someone violent, given how Theo reacts to men. Someone who has resources, otherwise you wouldn't need to be this careful." Carolina's laugh was bitter. "You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's survivable. For how long?" She finally looked at him. Tears tracked down her face, silent and devastating. "Until he finds us? Until someone asks the wrong question? Until Theo gets really sick and needs specialists who require documented medical history? How long have you been running?" 18 months. Carolina wiped her eyes roughly. 18 months of looking over my shoulder, of teaching Theo to lie about his name, of working for cash and counting every dollar because we can't access bank accounts, of living in that apartment with broken heat because landlords who don't ask for documents also don't fix things. Vincent's hands curled into fists. The father. Ex-husband. Carolina's voice went flat. "Eduardo, he was charming at first. Told me he did security work. By the time I realized what that meant, I was pregnant. By the time Theo was born, I'd seen too much. Knew too much. He said if I ever tried to leave, he'd make sure I never saw my son again. So you ran anyway." I ran because the alternative was staying and letting Theo grow up learning that violence is love. Carolina's jaw set. Eduardo has connections, police, judges, the kind of people who make domestic violence reports disappear, the kind who believe the man with the badge over the woman with bruises. He's a cop. Ex-cop. He works for Los Reyes now. Carolina said the name like it burned. Does their dirty work, enforcement, collection. He's good at hurting people. Vincent's blood went cold. Los Reyes, the gang that had been encroaching on Rossi territory for months. The same gang that was likely responsible for escalating tensions in Bronzeville. Does he know you're in Chicago? I don't know. I thought I'd been careful. Changed my name, Theo's name, paid cash for everything, avoided cameras. But lately, Carolina trailed off. Lately what? I felt watched, followed. She shook her head. Maybe I'm paranoid. Maybe 18 months of running has broken something in my head. But last week I saw a car outside the school, black sedan. It was there 3 days in a row. Then it disappeared. Vincent filed that information away. Black sedan. Los Reyes colors. Why didn't you tell someone? Who? The police? Carolina's laugh was sharp. Eduardo's friends are police. I go to them. They tell him where I am. Social services? They'd take Theo while they investigate. I'd lose him either way. You could have told me. Why? Carolina met his gaze. You're... God, Vincent, I don't even know what you are. I know you're connected. I know people are scared of you. I know money appears and problems disappear. But I don't know if that makes you better or worse than Eduardo. The words hit like a physical blow. Vincent had spent his life cultivating fear, using reputation as a weapon. But sitting on this hospital floor with a woman who'd rather let her son's arm heal wrong than risk the system, he hated what he'd become. I'm not like your ex-husband, he said quietly. How do I know that? Because I'm asking your permission instead of just taking control. Vincent shifted to face her fully. Carolina, I can help. I can make documents appear. Legal identities that will pass any background check. I can make sure Eduardo never finds you. But I won't do any of it without your consent. And if I say no, then I respect that. And I still cover Theo's medical bills. Carolina studied his face. Why? Why do you care about some teacher and her kid? Because Isabella needs you. Because you've done more for her in 2 months than all the therapy in the world. Because... Vincent stopped, surprised by the truth that wanted to emerge. Because you see people. Really see them. The way you saw Bella wasn't just a traumatized kid, but a whole person, trapped by grief. The way you saw me wasn't just what the newspapers say, but someone trying not to fail the only family he has left. And Theo? Do you see him? I see a child who's learned that the world is dangerous, who protects his mother even though he's 4 years old, who's strong and scared and deserves better than a broken wrist he can't get treated because his mother is protecting him the only way she knows how. A sob broke from Carolina's chest. She pressed her hands over her, mouth, shoulders shaking. Vincent did something he never did. He reached out, carefully, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he put his arm around her shoulders. She collapsed against him, crying silently into his suit jacket. I'm so tired, she whispered. I'm so tired of being scared. I know. I don't want to trade one cage for another. Then don't. Vincent's voice was steady. Let me give you freedom instead. Real documents, legal protection, a place to live where the heat works, a job where you're not paid under the table, everything you'd have if you weren't running. And what do you get? Vincent thought about Isabella, about the way she smiled now when Carolina was near. about the drawing on his refrigerator showing the three of them as a family, about how his mansion felt less empty when Carolina visited, how her presence made the cold marble seem warm. "I get to keep the promise I made," he said, "that the people I care about stay safe." Carolina pulled back slightly, wiping her eyes. "You barely know me. I know enough." Before she could respond, a doctor appeared. Young, exhausted, holding X-ray films. "Mrs. Mendez, your son's wrist is fractured, but it's clean. We'll cast it, give you pain medication, and he should heal fine in 6 weeks." Carolina stood shakily. "Thank you. Can I see him?" "Of course." She started to follow the doctor, then stopped. Looked back at Vincent. "If I say yes, if I let you help, how do I know this doesn't end with me owing you something I can't give?" Vincent stood, straightening his suit. "Because I'm not your ex-husband, Carolina, and I don't collect debts from people I'm trying to protect." She searched his face for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay. Help us." "I will." As Carolina disappeared into the examination room, Vincent pulled out his phone, called Marco. "I need information on Eduardo Mendez, ex-cop, currently working enforcement for Los Reyes. Everything you can find. And Marco, be discreet. If he's looking for someone, I don't want him knowing we're looking at him." "Got it, boss." Vincent ended the call, staring at the sterile hospital hallway. He'd just made a promise that might require him to go to war. Because if Eduardo Mendez was in Chicago, if Los Reyes was using him to search for Carolina, then the territories weren't the only thing at stake anymore. Vincent's family, Isabella, Carolina, Theo, they were all in the crosshairs now. And Vincent Moretti didn't lose, people he'd promised to protect. Not again. The safe house Vincent chose was in Oak Park, 15 minutes from his own estate. A modest 2-bedroom with a fenced yard, functional heat, and security that didn't look like security. The landlord was on the Rossi payroll, paid to keep records vague and questions unasked. Carolina stood in the empty living room, Theo pressed against her side, his casted arm cradled carefully. Her expression was unreadable. "It's too much," she finally said. "It's necessary." Vincent had spent 3 days arranging this. New identities processed through contacts in City Hall. Social security numbers that would pass verification. A teacher's license for Carolina under her new legal name. Birth certificate for Theo. Everything backdated. Everything clean. Carolina Mendez no longer existed on paper. In her place, Carolina Silva, widowed teacher from Miami, relocating to Chicago for a fresh start. The rent is already covered for the year. Vincent kept his eye, voice even, watching for the moment she'd bolt. "Utilities included. The kitchen's stocked. Theo's bedroom has furniture. You can move in whenever you're ready." "I can't accept this." "You already did." Vincent met her gaze. "You said yes in the hospital. This is what yes looks like." Carolina's jaw tightened. "This is a cage with nicer bars. This is freedom to walk to work without looking over your shoulder, to take Theo to a doctor without panicking, to sleep without 3 locks on your door and a knife under your pillow." Vincent took a step closer. "Don't confuse safety with captivity." "How do you know I keep a knife under my pillow?" "Because I would." They stared at each other. The afternoon sun through bare windows caught the dust motes between them, made the empty space feel liminal, a threshold between one life and another. "What do you want from me?" Carolina asked quietly. "I want Isabella to keep seeing you. I want you to stop running. I want—" Vincent stopped, surprised by the words that wanted to come next. "I want to know you're okay. I want to see you without fear in your eyes. I want this ache in my chest to stop when I think about you walking home in the cold." What? Carolina pressed. I want to sleep without wondering if Eduardo found you. Something shifted in her expression. You called your people, asked about him. It wasn't a question. Yes. What did you find? Vincent hesitated. The information Marco had gathered was damning. Eduardo, Mendez had a record, sealed, but accessible to someone with Vincent's resources. 3 excessive force complaints while with Chicago PD. 2 domestic disturbance calls to his address, both withdrawn before charges filed. Termination from the force for reasons redacted. And current employment with Los Reyes doing exactly what Carolina had described: enforcement, collection, intimidation. He's dangerous, Vincent said carefully. But he's not actively searching for you. Yet. Carolina's voice hollowed. What changed? Los Reyes is consolidating territory. Eduardo's been pulled into larger operations. Vincent chose his words precisely. He's focused on gang business right now. But if that changes, he'll come looking. Yes. Carolina moved to the window, stared out at the quiet suburban street. I thought I'd be faster, smarter. I thought if I just kept moving, kept changing names, eventually he'd give up. But men like Eduardo don't give up, do they? It's not about love or even about Theo. It's about winning, about not letting something he considers his property escape. Vincent's hands curled into fists. You're not property. Try telling him that. Carolina's laugh was sharp. He broke my ribs once, waited until they healed, then apologized with flowers and promises. The next time, it was my jaw, then my collarbone. Each time, he'd be sorry. Each time, he'd explain why I'd made him do it. How if I just listened better, loved him right, he wouldn't have to. Discipline me. Vincent's vision went red at the edges. Where is he now? Vincent. Where? I don't know. Carolina turned from the window. That's the truth. I know he's in Chicago. I know he works for Los Reyes. But I don't know where he lives or what he looks like now. I've been gone 18 months. He could have changed. Not enough that I can't find him. Carolina's eyes widened. What are you suggesting? Vincent knew he should lie, should soften the truth. But standing in this safe house with this woman who'd survived violence through sheer will, he found he couldn't. I'm suggesting I make the problem disappear. You mean kill him? Carolina said it flatly. I mean neutralize the threat. That's the same thing. Is it? Vincent stepped closer. If Eduardo disappeared, if he simply stopped existing, would you mourn him? No. The answer came immediately. But I don't want his blood on my hands. I don't want Theo growing up knowing his mother had his father killed. Theo would never know. I'd know. Carolina's voice cracked. Don't you understand? That's the line. That's the difference between surviving trauma and becoming it. Eduardo beat me, threatened me, tried to destroy me. But I won't become someone who solves problems with violence. I won't let him turn me into that. Vincent understood then. This wasn't about morality or squeamishness. This was about Carolina's sense of self. The core of who she was, refusing to break even when breaking would be easier. Then what do you want me to do? He asked. Protect us, without becoming the monster he is. That's not always possible in my world. Then maybe I don't belong in your world. The words hung between them. Vincent felt something crack in his chest. You're right. You don't. But Isabella does. And she needs you. So we find a third option. What third option? Legal protection. Restraining orders that actually work because I make sure they work. Documentation that keeps Eduardo away, without killing him. Maybe relocation if necessary. but with real identities that let you live normally. Vincent's mind was already working, calculating angles. I can make you invisible to him without bloodshed. Can you really? I don't know. The honesty cost him. But I'll try. Carolina studied him for a long moment. Then she crossed the room, stopped inches away. This close, Vincent could see the faint scar above her eyebrow. The place where Eduardo's ring had split the skin, probably. Could see the exhaustion in every line of her face. Could see the strength that refused to bend. Thank you, she said quietly, for trying to be different. I'm not different. I'm just... Vincent trailed off, unsure how to finish. Just what? Just compromised by a woman who sang lullabies in Portuguese? Just undone by a child who looked at him like he could be safe instead of scary? Just desperate to be something other than what his reputation said he was? You're just human, Carolina finished. Like the rest of us, trying to do better than what you were taught. Her hand touched his arm, brief, barely there, but Vincent felt it like a brand. Mama? Theo appeared in the doorway, casted arm cradled against his small chest. Is this our new house? Carolina's face transformed. All the wariness disappeared, replaced by soft love. Yes, meu amor, this is our new house. It's big. Theo ventured inside, eyes wide. Can I pick my room? Of course. The boy scampered toward the bedrooms, his excitement unfiltered. Carolina watched him go, blinking back tears. He hasn't been excited about anything in months, she whispered. He's always so careful, so aware that we have to be quiet, have to hide. But look at him. Vincent looked, saw a child acting like a child for the first time, running without fear, exploring without checking over his shoulder. He's safe here, Vincent said. For how long? As long as I'm breathing. Carolina turned to face him. That's a dangerous promise. It's the only kind I make. She searched his face, looking for something. Lies, maybe. Or truth that matched the conviction in his voice. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she nodded. Okay, I believe you. Vincent's chest tightened. You shouldn't. I've broken promises before. To yourself, maybe, but not to people you've decided to protect. Carolina's voice was sure. I've watched you with Isabella. You'll burn the world down before you let her be hurt, again. And now, for some reason I don't understand, you've decided Theo and I are under that same protection. You understand perfectly. Do I? Carolina's eyes searched his. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're a man who lost his brother and sister-in-law, who's raising a traumatized niece and has no idea how to fix her, who found someone who could reach her and is terrified of losing that connection. That's gratitude and desperation, Vincent. Not what? She didn't answer. But the air between them changed, became charged with something neither could name. Miss Carolina, Theo called from the bedroom. Come see. There's clouds on the ceiling. The moment broke. Carolina stepped back, wrapped her arms around herself. I should go check on him. Of course. But as she walked away, Vincent called after her. Carolina? She paused in the doorway. You're wrong about one thing. This isn't just about Isabella. It stopped being just about Isabella the moment I saw you sitting on that classroom floor, singing to a child who wasn't yours, giving pieces of yourself away because that's who you are. Carolina's breath caught. Vincent. You don't have to respond. I just needed you to know. This isn't gratitude or desperation. This is... He struggled for the word. Choice. I'm choosing to protect you. Not because I have to. Because I want to. Her eyes shimmered. That's the most terrifying thing you could have said. I know. She disappeared into the bedroom, where Theo's excited voice described the glow-in-the-dark stars Vincent had asked the landlord to install. Vincent stood alone in the empty living room, listening to their voices blend together. Mother and son, safe for the first time in 18 months. And he knew, with certainty that felt like falling, that he would do anything to keep them that way. Even if it meant becoming the monster Carolina feared. Even if it cost him everything. The call came at 2 a.m. Vincent was awake. He was always awake these days, mind churning through contingencies and angles. 3 weeks since Carolina moved into the safe house. 3 weeks of Isabella smiling more. 3 weeks of Vincent finding excuses to drive past Oak Park, checking security cameras, making sure the shadows stayed empty. 3 weeks of uneasy peace that felt like the pause before detonation. His phone screen lit the darkness. Marco. Talk, Vincent answered. We have a problem. Los Reyes just hit one of our collection points on 47th. Took everything. Left a message. Marco's voice was tight. They're making a move, Vincent. Real one this time. Vincent was already out of bed, pulling on clothes. Casualties? 2 of our guys. Roughed up, not dead. But that's not the worst part. Vincent's blood went cold. What's the worst part? They were asking questions about the school in Bronzeville, about whether we protect it, about teachers who work there. Marco paused. Boss, I think they're looking for someone. Carolina. Eduardo. Vincent's jaw locked. Assemble the crew. I want everyone at the warehouse in 30 minutes. Already done. Vincent ended the call, grabbed his gun from the safe, checked the clip with automatic precision. His mind was racing through scenarios. Los Reyes wouldn't hit Rossi operations without reason. And if they were asking about the school, about teachers, then Eduardo had escalated his search, which meant Carolina's time had run out. Vincent was halfway to Mo, the garage, when he remembered. Isabella. Sleeping upstairs in her room, finally peaceful after months of nightmares. He couldn't leave her alone, couldn't risk. His phone buzzed again. Text from the overnight security. Mrs. Awake. Says she needs Uncle Vincent. Of course. Isabella's instincts for danger had been honed sharp by trauma. She always knew when something was wrong. Vincent found her sitting on her bed, clutching the stuffed rabbit Carolina had given her, eyes wide and frightened. Uncle Vincent? Are the bad men coming? No, Piccola. Vincent knelt beside her bed, making himself small and safe. No bad men are coming here, I promise. But you have your work face on, the face you wear when you have to do scary things. 6 years old, and she could read him better than most of his soldiers. Vincent touched her cheek gently. I need to go handle some business. But Mrs. Chen is here. The housekeeper, who lived in the estate's guest house. And Marco will be outside. You're safe. Is Miss Carla safe? Vincent's chest constricted. Why do you ask that? Because you're worried about her. I can tell. Isabella's small hand covered his. You like her, like how Daddy liked Mommy. Vincent didn't know what to say. Couldn't lie to this child who'd already lost too much to lies. Miss Carla is in trouble, he said carefully. And I need to make sure she stays safe, just like I keep you safe. Because Theo needs his mama, like I need you. Yes. Isabella thought for a moment. Then she held out her stuffed rabbit. Take Coelho. He helps when I'm scared. Maybe he can help Miss Carla too. Vincent's throat tightened. He took the worn rabbit, feeling the weight of Isabella's trust. I'll bring him back. Bring Miss Carla back too. And Theo. Please. I will. He kissed her forehead, called Mrs. Chen, waited until the older woman was settled in Isabella's room before leaving. The drive to the warehouse took 12 minutes. Vincent spent them calling Carolina. No answer. He tried again and again. Each unanswered ring wound his tension tighter. Finally, she picked up. Vincent, it's 2 a.m. Relief flooded through him. Are you okay? Is Theo okay? We're fine. We're sleeping. Why? Lock every door. Don't open for anyone except me. I'm sending Marco to sit on your house. Silence. Then quietly. He found me. I don't know. But Los Reyes hit one of our operations. They were asking about you. He heard her breathing change. Sharp, shallow. The sound of panic barely contained. Carolina, listen to me. You're safe. The house is secure. Marco will be there in 10 minutes. I'll handle this. How? Her voice cracked. How do you handle a gang war and a violent ex-husband at the same time? By ending both. Vincent's voice went cold. Stay inside. Keep Theo close. I'll call you when it's done. Vincent, don't... But he'd already hung up. Couldn't afford the distraction of her fear. Couldn't afford to hear her ask him not to become what he needed to be. The warehouse was full when Vincent arrived. 15 men, all armed, all watching him with the focused attention of soldiers awaiting orders. Don Rossi stood near the front, silver hair gleaming under industrial lights. We have a choice, the Don said without preamble. Los Reyes wants war. We can give it to them, or we can negotiate. Negotiation shows weakness, someone argued. War costs lives, another countered. Vincent listened to the debate, mind working through angles. Los Reyes was testing boundaries, seeing how far they could push before the Rossi family retaliated. Classic territorial escalation. But underneath the gang politics was Eduardo's search. Personal vendetta disguised as business. It's not about territory, Vincent said, cutting through the arguing voices. It's about leverage. Every head turned. Los Reyes has been pushing into Bronzeville for months, but they've never been this aggressive, never hit us directly. Vincent paced, pieces clicking together. They're doing this because someone inside their organization asked for help. Someone with a personal stake in accessing our protected zones. The ex-cop, Marco said. Eduardo Mendez. Don Rossi's eyes sharpened. Explain. Vincent did. Quickly. Efficiently. Carolina's history. Eduardo's employment with Los Reyes. The connection between the gang's sudden interest in the school and Eduardo's search for his ex-wife. So Los Reyes is providing resources for Eduardo's personal vendetta, the Don summarized, and using our retaliation as an excuse to claim territory. Yes. Then we remove Eduardo, without engaging Los Reyes directly. That's a delicate line, Vincent said. You're consigliere. Drawing delicate lines is your specialty. Don Rossi's voice was steel. Find Eduardo Mendez. Neutralize him. Make it look like accident or internal problem. Los Reyes loses their reason to push, and we avoid full war. Vincent's hands clenched. Neutralize. The word Carolina hated. The word that meant violence, blood, permanent removal. The word that meant keeping her safe. Understood, Vincent said. But as the meeting continued, as strategies were discussed and assignments given, Vincent felt the weight of Carolina's voice in his memory. I don't want his blood on my hands. I don't want Theo growing up knowing his mother had his father killed. He'd promised to be different. Promised to find the third option. But sometimes there was no third option. Sometimes survival meant becoming exactly what you'd sworn you wouldn't be. Vincent left the warehouse at dawn, drove to Oak Park, where Marco sat in an unmarked car outside Carolina's house. The lights were on inside. No sleep for her tonight either. He should go home, should give her space, should focus on the Eduardo problem with cold efficiency. Instead, he found himself at her door, Carolina opened it before he could knock. Still in pajamas, eyes red from crying or fear or both. Is it done? Not yet. But you're going to kill him. Not a question. I'm going to protect you. That's not an answer. Vincent stepped inside, closed the door behind him. The house smelled like coffee and fear. Carolina. I heard Theo crying in his sleep last night, calling for his daddy. Even after everything Eduardo did, even after 18 months, Theo still loves him. Because he's 4, and children love their parents even when they shouldn't. Carolina's voice shook. If you kill Eduardo, what do I tell my son? How do I explain that his father disappeared because I asked someone to make him go away? You tell him his father left. You tell him what Eduardo already made true, that Theo's better off without him. That's a lie. It's protection. It's murder. Carolina's eyes blazed. And I won't do it. I won't trade Eduardo's violence for yours. I won't. Vincent kissed her. He didn't plan it. Didn't think. Just moved on instinct as old as survival itself. The need to silence fear with something stronger. His hands cupped her face, thumbs tracing the path of tears, mouth claiming hers with desperate intensity. For a moment, Carolina froze. Then she kissed him back. It was anger and fear, and something neither of them could name. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer even as her mind probably screamed to push away. Vincent tasted salt. Her tears or his, impossible to tell. Felt her heartbeat racing against his chest. Felt the moment she came back to herself and shoved him hard. Don't. Carolina's voice broke. Don't try to distract me with whatever that was. Vincent's breathing was ragged. That was me showing you the only truth I have. I can't be who you want me to be. I can't solve this without violence, but I can make sure that violence never touches you or Theo again. By becoming Eduardo. By being worse than Eduardo. Efficient enough that it's over before you have to know details. Clean enough that Theo never has questions. Final enough that you sleep without terror. Carolina wrapped her arms around herself. And what about you? Do you sleep without terror? Or do you carry every life you've taken into your dreams? Vincent had no answer. Because the truth was, he did carry them. Every single one. The nightmares weren't about guilt. He'd made peace with necessary violence years ago. But they were about cost. About the pieces of humanity he'd traded for power. About the distance between who he'd wanted to be at 16 and who he'd become at 40. I'll carry Eduardo too, he said quietly. Add him to the collection. But you and Theo won't carry anything except safety. That's the deal. It's not a deal. It's damnation. Then I'm already damned. They stared at each other across the small living room. Outside, dawn broke over Oak Park, turning the sky purple-gray. Somewhere in the house, Theo slept fitfully. Somewhere in the city, Eduardo hunted. And between them all, Vincent and Carolina stood at an impasse neither knew how to cross. I need time, Carolina finally said. We don't have time. Then make time. Her voice hardened. You want me to accept this? To look the other way while you kill the father of my child? Then give me time to come to terms with what that makes me. It makes you a survivor. It makes me complicit. Vincent wanted to argue. Wanted to shake her and make her understand that survival didn't follow moral guidelines. That sometimes love meant doing terrible things, so the people you loved could stay innocent. But he'd learned something from Carolina over these months. Had learned that her strength came not from compromise, but from her refusal to compromise. That bending her would break her. And he'd rather lose her than break her. 48 hours, he said. I'll give you 48 hours to decide. But then, I'm solving this problem, with or without your blessing. Carolina's eyes filled with fresh tears. If you do this, I'm gone. Theo and I disappear. You'll never see us again. The threat landed like a bullet. You'd take away Isabella's only source of comfort because of your moral high ground? I'd take away my son's only source of stability rather than let him be raised by someone who thinks murder is protection. Carolina's voice cracked. Don't make me choose, Vincent. Please. But he was making her choose. They both knew it. Vincent turned toward the door, jaw locked against words that wanted to spill out. Wanted to tell her that he was falling in love. With her. That the thought of her and Theo disappearing carved him hollow. That he'd rather die himself than let Eduardo have another chance to hurt them. Instead, he said, 48 hours. Then I do what needs to be done. He left before she could respond. Drove home through empty streets, mind already calculating how to end Eduardo Mendez's existence quietly enough that Carolina could pretend it never happened, and hating himself for it, hating her for making him feel this much, hating Eduardo for existing, but mostly hating the 16-year-old version of himself who'd chosen this life-thinking violence was strength instead of the slow erosion of everything that made you human. Vincent spent 40 hours searching for Eduardo Mendez. His contacts in Los Reyes went silent. The few willing to talk said Eduardo had gone underground, paranoid about internal threats. Smart. The man had cop training, knew how investigations worked, knew that disappearing was the best defense against someone like Vincent. But everyone made mistakes. Everyone had patterns. Vincent found Eduardo's pattern through his addiction. Gambling. The man had debts scattered across 3 illegal poker rooms in territory Los Reyes controlled. Vincent traced him through bookies, through dealers, through the ecosystem of vice that connected Chicago's underworld. 46 hours after Carolina's ultimatum, Vincent had an address, a motel in Englewood, room 214. Eduardo had checked in under a fake name 3 days ago, paid cash for a week, and had been drinking himself into stupidity every night. Vincent sat in his car across the street, gun heavy in his jacket, watching lights flicker in that second-floor room. He'd brought no backup. This needed to look random. Robbery gone wrong, maybe, or internal Los Reyes cleanup. Nothing that traced back to the Rossi family. Nothing that connected to Carolina. His phone buzzed. Text from Isabella. Are you coming home? Miss Carla is here for dinner. Vincent's chest tightened. Carolina had brought Theo to the mansion tonight, her way of pretending normalcy while waiting for Vincent to become a murderer. Or her way of saying goodbye. He typed back, Soon, Piccola. Be good for Mrs. Chen. Another buzz. Are you doing bad things? Vincent stared at the text. 6-year-old's bluntness cutting through everything. He could lie. Should lie. But Isabella had been lied to enough. Her parents were on a trip, they'd said. They'd be back soon, right up until child. Services came to explain that Mommy and Daddy were never coming back. He typed, I'm trying to do the right thing. Sometimes that looks wrong. Isabella's response came immediately. Mommy used to say that. She said Daddy had to do hard things, but he was good inside. Vincent closed his eyes. His brother had been good inside, had tried to balance family business with actual family, had fought to keep the violence away from Maria and Isabella, and died for it. Vincent opened his eyes, stared at room 214. Eduardo's shadow moved past the curtained window, pacing, drinking, alive, for now. Vincent got out of the car. He was halfway across the parking lot when his phone rang. Carolina. Don't do it. Her voice was wrecked. Please, Vincent, don't do it. Vincent stopped walking. Your 48 hours are up. I know, but I'm asking anyway. Begging. He heard her breathing, ragged and desperate. There has to be another way. There isn't. Then let me leave. Let me take Theo and disappear. You'll never hear from us again. Eduardo will eventually give up. Los Reyes will find another angle. And you won't have to carry this. He'll find you. Vincent's voice was flat. You know he will. Men like Eduardo don't give up. They obsess. They hunt. He'll spend the rest of his life searching. And one day when you've let your guard down, when Theo's older and you think you're safe, Eduardo will show up. And he'll take everything. Silence. Then quietly. How do you know? Because I'm the same. When I decide something is mine to protect, I don't stop. I don't compromise. I don't rest until the threat is eliminated. Vincent's jaw locked. The only difference between Eduardo and me is that I'm protecting you from him instead of from me. That's not the only difference, isn't it? Vincent looked up at room 214. We're both violent men who've decided we own something. The only variable is what we do with that violence. You're not him, Carolina said fiercely. You gave me choice. You asked permission. You've spent weeks trying to find nonviolent solutions because I asked you to. Eduardo never once considered what I wanted. But in the end, I'm doing the same thing he would. Making a decision for you because I think I know better. No, you're making a decision to protect a child. To protect me. That's not control. That's... Carolina's voice cracked. That's love. The word landed between them. Vincent's hand tightened on his phone. Don't. Why not? Because acknowledging it makes this harder? Because if you love me, then killing Eduardo isn't just business, it's personal. Because I can't afford to love you. Vincent's voice went rough. Love makes you weak, makes you second guess, makes you vulnerable to every threat that comes near what you love. I won't do that to Isabella. Won't risk her because I've let myself care too much about her teacher. You already care too much. We both know it. And so does Isabella. Carolina's voice gentled. She asked me tonight if you were my boyfriend. 4-year-old language for something she senses but can't name. And I didn't know what to tell her. Tell her no. Would that be the truth? Vincent had no answer. Because the truth was complicated. The truth was he thought about Carolina when he should be thinking about business. Noticed when she looked tired. Made sure food showed up at her house without explanation. Drove past Oak Park at night just to see her lights on and know she was safe. The truth was he was 40 years old and had never felt this unmoored. I'm standing in a parking lot with a gun in my jacket, about to kill a man, Vincent said. What do you think the truth is? I think you're terrified. I think you're standing there trying to be what you've always been, but part of you wants to be different. Wants to walk away and find another solution because that's what I asked for. And you're angry at yourself for even considering it. She knew him too well. There is no other solution, Carolina. Then let me talk to him. Vincent's blood went cold. Absolutely not. Why not? He's Theo's father. He's my ex-husband. Maybe if I explain... Explain what? That you want him to politely stop hunting you? That you'd appreciate if he respected your new life? Vincent's voice turned savage. Men like Eduardo don't respond to reason. They respond to power. And the only power he respects is the power to end him. You don't know that. I know exactly that. I've been Eduardo. I've been the man who decides someone belongs to him and refuses to let go. The only reason I'm not him now is because you gave me permission to protect you. But if you'd refused? If you'd kept running? Vincent's voice dropped. I'd still be doing this. Still be here. Because I can't stand the thought of him touching you again. Silence. Long enough that Vincent thought she'd hung up. Then, come home, Vincent. What? Come home. Don't kill Eduardo tonight. Come home and have dinner with us. Let Isabella see you're okay. Carolina's voice broke. Let me look at you one more time before you do this. Vincent's chest ached. That's not fair. I know, but I'm asking anyway. He looked up at room 214. Eduardo's shadow still paced, still alive, still a threat that needed eliminating. But Isabella's text burned in his mind. Are you doing bad things? And Carolina's voice in his ear. Come home. Vincent made a choice that went against every instinct he'd honed over 25 years. I'm coming home. The relief in Carolina's breath nearly undid him. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm just delaying the inevitable. Maybe. Or maybe you're choosing differently. Carolina paused. I'll see you soon. Vincent ended the call, stared at room 214 for one more long moment. Then he turned his back on Eduardo Mendez and walked away. The drive to Oakbrook felt longer than usual. Vincent's mind churned through scenarios, through possibilities. Every instinct screamed that he was making a mistake, that leaving Eduardo alive was leaving a bomb ticking. But Carolina's voice in his head was louder. That's love. He pulled into his driveway 40 minutes later. The mansion blazed with light, warm against the February darkness. Through the windows, Vincent could see movement. Children running, adults laughing. Normal. Safe. Carolina met him at the door before he could use his key. She looked exhausted. Beautiful and exhausted, in jeans, and one of his borrowed sweaters that hung too large on her frame. Her eyes searched his face. You came back. You asked me to. I know, but I wasn't sure you would. Carolina stepped aside, letting him enter. Isabella's been watching the door for the past hour. Theo finally distracted her with some board game. Vincent could hear them in the living room. Isabella's laugh, real, unforced, mixing with Theo's giggles. The sound did something to his chest. You didn't kill him, Carolina said quietly. Not yet. Maybe not at all. Vincent turned to face her fully. Don't mistake tonight for permanent. Eduardo is still a threat. Los Reyes is still pushing. Something will have to give. I know. Carolina moved closer. Close enough that Vincent could smell her shampoo, that cheap floral scent that he'd memorized. But tonight, you chose differently. That matters. Does it? Or am I just delaying his death and endangering you in the process? You're letting me keep my soul intact. Carolina's hand touched his chest, right over his heart. And maybe yours too. Before Vincent could respond, Isabella appeared in the hallway. Uncle Vincent, you're home. Come see what Theo built with the blocks. Vincent let himself be pulled into the living room, into the chaos of children's play. Theo showed him an elaborate tower, explaining the architecture with 4-year-old seriousness. Isabella held Vincent's hand the entire time, as if afraid he'd disappear. Carolina watched from the doorway, expression soft and complex. They had dinner together. Simple food, pasta, salad, bread. But it felt like more. Felt like family. Theo sat between Carolina and Vincent, chattering about preschool. Isabella was quiet but present, occasionally reaching over to touch Vincent's arm, checking he was real. Mama, Theo said suddenly, can we stay here? This house is warm. Carolina's smile wobbled. We have our own house now, remember? The one Mr. Vincent helped us find? But I like it here, with Bella, and Mr. Vincent. Theo looked up at Vincent with those huge brown eyes. Can we stay? Vincent's throat tightened. He glanced at Carolina, saw her frozen, waiting for him to answer. You can stay whenever you want, Vincent said carefully. Bella likes having you here. Do you like having us here? Theo asked. children and their devastating honesty. Yes, I do. Then why don't we stay always, like a family? Carolina intervened gently. Theo, families are complicated. Sometimes people who care about each other live in different houses. That's dumb. Despite everything, Vincent laughed. You're right. It is dumb. After dinner, Carolina took the children upstairs for baths. Vincent cleaned up, the domestic task strange and grounding. He was drying dishes when his phone buzzed. Marco. Eduardo's on the move, heading toward Oak Park. Vincent's blood turned to ice. He was dialing Marco back when the second text came. Wait, he's turning around. Someone's following him. Black SUV. Los Reyes plates. Vincent's mind raced. Los Reyes was moving on Eduardo? Why? Third text. Eduardo just got pulled into the SUV. Looks hostile. Should I follow? Vincent typed. Yes. Report everything. He stood in his kitchen, dish towel in hand, trying to process. Los Reyes had just grabbed Eduardo, which meant either they'd discovered his personal vendetta was compromising gang business, or someone inside Los Reyes had decided Eduardo was a liability. Either way, the problem might be solving itself. Carolina appeared in the doorway. The kids are asking for you. Story time. Carolina, whatever it is, it can wait. Her voice was firm. Come read to them. Be present. Let tonight be normal. So Vincent went upstairs. Read Where the Wild Things Are to two children who hung on every word. Tucked Theo into the guest room bed, the boy already half asleep. Then moved to Isabella's room, where she lay clutching her rabbit. Uncle Vincent? Bella whispered. Are you going to marry Miss Carla? Vincent blinked. What? Theo asked about families, and I was thinking, you like her. She likes you. That's what grown-ups do when they like each other, right? They get married and make a family? It's more complicated than that, Piccola. Why? Isabella's eyes were serious. You're good to her. She's good to you. She makes you smile. You make her not scared. That seems simple. Out of the mouths of children. Sometimes being good to each other isn't enough, Vincent said carefully. Was Daddy good to Mommy? The question caught him off guard. Yes, very good. And they loved each other? More than anything. But they still died. Isabella's voice went small. So being good and loving doesn't keep you safe, does it? Vincent's chest cracked open. He pulled Isabella into his arms, held her tight. No, Bambina, it doesn't. But it makes the time you have together worth everything. Isabella was quiet for a long moment. Then, I love Miss Carla and Theo. I want them to stay. I know. Do you love them? Vincent thought about lying, about protecting Isabella from the complications of adult emotions, but she'd already lost too much to lies. I'm starting to, he admitted, and that terrifies me. Because they might leave? Or because they might die like Mommy and Daddy? Both. Isabella pulled back, looked at him with eyes too old for her age. But if you don't love them, they'll leave anyway. And then you'll be sad, for different reasons. The wisdom undid him. When did you get so smart? Vincent asked, voice rough. Mommy used to say I was an old soul. Isabella curled back into his arms. Stay tonight. Don't go do bad things. Just stay. I'll stay. Carolina was waiting in the hallway when Vincent finally emerged from Isabella's room. She didn't say anything, just took his hand and led him downstairs to the living room. They sat on the couch, not touching, but close. What happened? She asked. You got a message during dinner. You tried to hide it, but I saw your face change. Vincent debated lying, decided against it. Los Reyes grabbed Eduardo. pulled him off the street. Carolina went very still. Why? I don't know. Maybe internal discipline. Maybe he became a liability. Maybe they found out he was using gang resources for personal business. Is he? I don't know that either. Marco's following them. I'll know more soon. Carolina's hands twisted in her lap. I should feel relieved. But I just feel empty. Like I should grieve even though he tried to destroy me. He's Theo's father. You're allowed to grieve what he could have been instead of what he was. She looked at him, eyes shimmering. How do you do that? Do what? Understand things you shouldn't. You live in violence, but you speak like someone who's spent years in therapy processing trauma. Vincent's mouth quirked. I have spent years in therapy. Mandatory after my parents died. Don't worked with a psychiatrist for decades. Insisted his consigliere be mentally sound. He paused. Doesn't mean I'm healed. Just means I understand my damage. We all have damage. Carolina's hand found his. The question is whether we let it destroy us or define us. And if I've let it do both, then you're human. Carolina shifted closer. Vincent, I need to tell you something. What? Earlier, on the phone, I said you were choosing love over violence. I meant it, but I also need you to know. She took a shaking breath. I'm falling in love with you, and I don't know what to do with that. You're everything I should run from. Everything I've spent 18 months trying to escape. But you're also the safest I've felt in years. The first person who's asked what I want instead of telling me what I need. And that's terrifying and wonderful, and I don't know how to reconcile it. Vincent's heart hammered against his ribs. Carolina, let me finish. Her grip on his hand tightened. I know this is complicated. I know you have Isabella to think about. I know your world is dangerous and my past is messy, and we're probably a disaster waiting to happen. But tonight, sitting at your dinner table with our children laughing, I felt something I haven't felt since before I married Eduardo. I felt hope. And I don't want to lose that. Vincent pulled her closer, until she was pressed against his side. You won't lose it. I won't let you. You can't promise that. I can promise I'll try. That's all any of us can do. Try to be better than our worst instincts. Try to choose light over darkness. Try to. Vincent stopped, realizing the truth of what he was about to say. Try to deserve the people who believe we're worth loving. Carolina turned in his arms, faced him fully. I believe you're worth loving. You shouldn't. Too late. Then she kissed him. This kiss was nothing like the desperate clash in her doorway. This was slow, deliberate, full of promise instead of panic. Carolina's hands cupped his face, thumbs tracing his jaw. Vincent's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, trying to memorize every detail. The way she tasted like coffee and honey. The way she fit against him perfectly. The way his whole body relaxed for the first time in years. When they finally pulled apart, Carolina rested her forehead against his. What happens now? I don't know. Vincent's honesty surprised him. I've never done this before. Never let myself want something beyond Isabella's safety. We figure it out together. Carolina's smile was tremulous. One day at a time, one choice at a time. Vincent's phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again, insistent. Carolina pulled back. Answer it. It might be about Eduardo. Vincent checked the message. Marco. Eduardo's dead. Los Reyes dumped his body in the river. Word is he was skimming, using gang product for personal deals. They made an example. Vincent read the message twice, then showed it to Carolina. Her face went through a complicated series of expressions. Relief, grief, guilt, finally settling on something like resignation. "It's over," she whispered. "Yes. I should feel happy. He can't hurt us anymore, can't hunt us, can't take Theo." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "But all I feel is sad for the man he could have been, for the father Theo deserved, for the husband I thought I was marrying before everything went wrong." Vincent pulled her close, let her cry into his shoulder. "You're allowed to grieve, allowed to feel complicated things. That's what makes you human." They sat like that for a long time, Carolina crying, Vincent holding her, the house quiet around them, except for the distant sound of children sleeping peacefully above. Eventually, Carolina's tears slowed. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "What do I tell Theo?" "The truth. Age-appropriate version. That his father got into bad situations and made bad choices, and sometimes those choices have permanent consequences. He's 4. He's smart. He'll understand what he needs to understand now, and you can fill in details as he grows." Vincent tucked hair behind her ear. "But he doesn't need to know his father was murdered. He can just know his father's gone." Carolina nodded, took a shaking breath. "I don't have to run anymore. No. I can stay in Chicago, keep teaching, give Theo stability." "Yes. And you?" Carolina met his gaze. "What about you, Vincent? Now that the threat is gone, what do you want?" Vincent thought about lying, about keeping distance, about protecting himself from the vulnerability of wanting something this much. Instead, he told the truth. "I want you to stay. Want Theo to keep playing with Isabella. Want to have dinners together and read bedtime stories and figure out what normal looks like. That's domestic. I know. You're a consigliere to a Mafia family. I'm a widowed schoolteacher. That's not a romance novel. That's a logistical nightmare. I don't care." Carolina's smile was watery but real. "You should care. There are 1,000 reasons this is a bad idea. Name one that matters more than how I feel when you walk into a room." She couldn't, or wouldn't. Instead, she kissed him again. Softer this time, like a promise instead of a question. When they finally pulled apart, Carolina stood, held out her hand. "Stay tonight. Not in separate rooms, not with distance between us. Just stay." Vincent took her hand. "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm choosing to be brave anyway." They went upstairs together, checked on the children, both sleeping soundly. Then to Vincent's room, where they spent the night wrapped around each other, talking until dawn about everything and nothing. Plans for the future, fears about the past, the million small details that make up a life. Vincent told her about his brother, about the guilt he carried, about how Isabella had become his reason to be better than the violence that defined him. Carolina told him about São Paulo, about her family who didn't approve of Eduardo, about the 19-year-old girl who'd thought love could fix a broken man. They fell asleep as the sun rose, Carolina's head on Vincent's chest, his arms around her, both of them breathing in sync. It wasn't perfect. There would be complications. Don Rossi would have questions. Los Reyes would continue pushing. Life would continue being messy and difficult and sometimes dangerous. But for the first time in 8 months, Vincent slept without nightmares. And for the first time in 18 months, Carolina slept without terror. 3 months later, on a Saturday in May, Vincent stood in his backyard watching Isabella and Theo chase each other through grass that had finally turned green. The children's laughter echoed off the trees, pure and unfiltered. Carolina stood beside him, her hand in his. She wore a simple sundress, hair loose around her shoulders, face tilted up toward sun that actually felt warm for once. "They're happy," she said softly. "They are. So am I." Carolina squeezed his hand. In case you were wondering. Vincent turned to face her. I was hoping. More than hoping, I think. Her smile was teasing. You asked Don Rossi for permission to build the playground. Isabella wanted a swing set, and the sandbox, and the climbing wall, and the treehouse. Vincent's mouth quirked. Theo mentioned he'd always wanted those things. Carolina laughed, the sound bright and clear. You're incorrigible. I'm thorough. You're in love. She said it simply, like stating fact. Vincent didn't deny it. Yes, I am. With me? With you. With this. With the idea that maybe broken people can build something whole together. Carolina's eyes shimmered. That's very poetic for a consigliere. Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain. She kissed him there in the sunshine, with their children playing nearby, with the future stretching out uncertain but hopeful. And Vincent realized something fundamental had shifted. His world was still dangerous. His choices were still complicated. But he'd found something worth more than power or control, or the respect that came from fear. He'd found a family he chose instead of one he inherited. Found love that asked for vulnerability instead of dominance. Found peace in the ordinary chaos of children's laughter and dinner conversations and plans for tomorrow. Marry me, Vincent said against Carolina's lips. She pulled back, eyes wide. What? Marry me. Not today. Not even soon. But eventually, when you're ready. When Theo's ready. Marry me and let me spend the rest of my life proving that choosing love over violence was the smartest decision I ever made. Carolina's smile could have lit the whole city. You're asking? I'm begging. Good. She kissed him again. Then yes. Eventually. When we're ready. Yes. Isabella's voice called from across the yard. Uncle Vincent, Miss Carla, come play with us. She still calls me Miss Carla, Carolina noted. Give her time. She's adjusting. Vincent took Carolina's hand, started walking toward the children. One day she'll call you Mom, when she's ready. And you? What will Theo call you? Vincent thought about it. Whatever he wants. Dad, Vincent, Mr. Moretti. As long as he knows he's safe and wanted and loved, the name doesn't matter. They reached the children, who immediately pulled them into some elaborate game involving dragons and knights. Vincent found himself cast as the dragon, required to chase the knights around the yard while making roaring sounds. He was 40 years old, consigliere to one of Chicago's most powerful families, respected and feared across the city. And he spent the afternoon on his hands and knees, playing pretend with two children who'd taught him that strength wasn't about control, it was about showing up. That night, after the children were asleep, Vincent and Carolina sat on the back porch watching fireflies light up the darkness. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, Carolina admitted. For something to go wrong. For this to be too good to be true. Things will go wrong. Life doesn't stop having problems just because we're happy. Vincent pulled her closer. But we'll handle them together. What if Don Rossi disapproves? He doesn't. I already asked. Carolina's head whipped around. When? Last week. Had a private meeting. Explained the situation. He said as long as you make me less of a workaholic and more human, he approves. Vincent's mouth quirked. Also said it's about time someone civilized me. You asked permission to marry me before you proposed? I asked for blessing. There's a difference. Vincent met her gaze. Don's the closest thing to family I have outside Isabella. His opinion matters. Carolina was quiet for a moment. Then, what about Los Reyes? Absorbed into our territory. The power vacuum after Eduardo's death created instability. They're restructuring. We're monitoring but not engaging unless they push first. So it's really over. The Eduardo problem is over. The Mafia problem continues as long as I'm consigliere. But I've made it clear to Don Rossi that my family, you, Isabella, Theo, are off limits. No job is worth risking you. That's a big declaration. It's the truth. Vincent turned to face her fully. I've spent 25 years putting the family business first, making sacrifices, becoming what Don Rossi needed. But I won't sacrifice you. Won't sacrifice the chance to be a real father to Isabella and Theo. Won't sacrifice ordinary happiness for extraordinary power. Carolina's eyes filled. You mean that? Every word. She kissed him then, soft and sure. I love you, Vincent Moretti. Even though you're complicated and dangerous, and probably going to give me a heart attack one day from worrying. I love you too, Carolina Silva. Vincent used her new legal name deliberately. Even though you're stubborn and idealistic, and make me want to be better than I probably am. You're already better. You just needed someone to see it. They sat together in the darkness, wrapped around each other, listening to the night sounds of suburban Chicago. Inside the house, 2 children slept peacefully. No nightmares, no terror. Just normal childhood dreams of dragons and adventures. And Vincent thought about the little girl who'd knocked on his car window once, asking for help. The little boy who'd asked why people, who loved each other, didn't just live together. The woman who'd taught him that asking for permission was stronger than taking control. The family he'd found by choosing love over violence, vulnerability over power, presence over dominance. It wasn't the life he'd planned. Wasn't the future 16-year-old Vincent had envisioned when his father first brought him into the family business. But it was the life he wanted. The life he'd fight to protect. The life that finally made sense of all the years of surviving instead of living. Sometimes the people who save us aren't the ones we expect. Sometimes they're the ones the world told us to fear. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, we get the chance to save them back. Vincent had been saved by a woman singing lullabies in Portuguese, by a little girl who drew families that included everyone, by a little boy who asked simple questions with complicated answers, and he'd spend the rest of his life trying to deserve that salvation. Sometimes, survival isn't about doing it alone. Sometimes it's about knowing when to let someone else share the weight. And maybe that's what all of us are searching for. Not perfection, but someone willing to fight for us when we're too tired to fight for ourselves. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment with your thoughts. We read every single one. Hit like to support more stories about love, redemption, and second chances. And subscribe to Crimson Stories, because we post new emotional journeys every day. Before you go, check out the next video on screen, or explore our playlist for more tales of broken people becoming whole together. Thank you for being here tonight. Until next time, remember, even the most dangerous hearts can learn to love gently. Good night.